By the end of this video, you're gonna go from complete AI automation beginner to having built your first absolutely badass AI automation. Everything I'm gonna cover in this video is designed with beginners in mind, but even if you have a little experience under your belt, I guarantee you're gonna learn something new through this follow along build that we're about to complete. So to give you a quick lay of the land, there are a few different automation platforms out there, but the main ones that you need to know are Zapier, Make, and N8N. This video is going to be my first entry into my Intro to AI Automation series, where I'm going to be covering in-depth tutorials on all of these platforms, sharing pre-built automations and AI agents that you can use in your own business or start selling to other businesses, and so much more. So if that's something that tickles your fancy, now would be a great time to like this video and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future content. All right, so for the sake of this first automation, we're gonna be building this out on a platform called Make. And if you don't already have an account, I've included a link in the description where you can sign up for free. I've also included a link to sign up for my school community called AI Quest, where I'll be sharing the link to import this pre-built automation directly into your Make account, along with all the other resources that I'm gonna be mentioning throughout this video. All right, so to give you a quick walkthrough, once you click on the link in the description, you'll be taken to a page that looks like this. Look at that handsome devil right there. So assuming you haven't joined the community already, you'll see a button here that will prompt you to join. You'll just fill out a quick form. And then once you're in the community, you'll be able to navigate to the classroom area. From the classroom area, you're going to go to AI Automation 101. And then the first lesson in this section is going to be the one that pertains to this video. You'll see this video here posted once this video actually goes live. But the main thing that you need access to right now is just the resources section here. So here I've outlined pretty much everything that you'll need for the sake of this video. So the first thing I would recommend doing is creating your Make account if you don't already have one. So you can just click on this link, create your account. And then once you've done that, you can come back here and then download the file to actually import this automation into your Make account. So you'll just click here, you'll click download, and then I'll just put it into my downloads for now. Okay. And then once you're in your Make account, you'll come into scenarios and then create new scenario. So before I get into this, I want to just quickly clarify like what even is a scenario. So these different automation platforms, whether it's Zapier, Make, N8N, they may refer to this as different terms. So Make's version of it is called a scenario. In Zapier, it's called a Zap. Other platforms may call it a workflow, but in essence, it's all the same thing. It's essentially an automation. The way an automation in broad strokes is going to work is it's essentially going to be comprised of what's known as a trigger and either an action or a set of actions that follows that trigger. So the way I like to think of it is almost like a set of dominoes. And the trigger is going to be you actually knocking over that first domino, and all the actions are all the other dominoes that topple over as a result of that first domino being pushed over. What we need to do here within our Make account is just click on create a new scenario. And then under this little three dots right here where it says more, we're going to click import blueprint. We're going to choose file and select the file that we just downloaded. So we'll click save. And boom, it's going to import this pre-built scenario that I've included for you guys. To break this down at a high level, essentially what's going on here is our trigger is going to be updating a certain step within our content pipeline. So let me quickly show you a visual of what that looks like. So we're going to be taking a content creation pipeline. Again, this is an asset that is included within QuestOS. This is like an operating system for your life and your business that is included within our AI Quest community. I've included a link for this in the resources as well. Duplicate QuestOS. When you click on this, that's going to take you to the QuestOS dashboard. If you don't already have a Notion account, you'll create a Notion account for free. And then once you have a Notion account, you'll then click this button right here to duplicate all of QuestOS into your own Notion account. We have full trainings on this in the community as well if you haven't gone through that already. But once you've gone through that, you'll click on this creator button right here. And that's going to take you to the creator pipeline. So that's basically what we have here. So this is going to basically allow you to streamline the process of creating content. If you're a content creator, or if you want to potentially provide this type of a service to a content creator. So essentially what we're going to be doing here at a high level is our trigger, the thing that's going to initiate our automation, is going to be the act of moving one of these cards here from the not started category of our creator pipeline into the research stage, meaning that we're essentially taking these raw ideas here. So that, let's just think of our not started stage as kind of just like a brain dump of just ideas that come to mind that are just rough ideas. And then once we've decided that we want to take one of these rough ideas and actually start turning it into a piece of content, we'll then move it from not started into the research stage. And then that's going to be the trigger that then kicks off our automation that then completes all the steps that we're going to go over in this video. Essentially what that's going to be doing within this automation, if we zoom in a little bit, so our first step is going to be that trigger step of moving that content idea from the not started, just raw idea stage into researching, which is then going to trigger a ChatGPT step. So this is our first AI step in the automation. At a high level, what this is going to be doing is essentially taking that raw idea and then converting it into a YouTube optimized title. From there, what we're going to do is then update that card in Notion with that new YouTube optimized title. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at our current YouTube folder to see what our last YouTube video folder was. Then based on that information, we're then going to come up with the new name of our YouTube video folder in our Google Drive for that next video. And then the next steps here is creating all the folder structure to actually keep that video organized within our Google Drive. And then the last step here is sending a notification within our Slack workspace to the appropriate channel to let the rest of our team know that we're actually starting to work on this next video. So the appropriate people, whether it's, you're the thumbnail designer, the video editor, can be notified and start working on their respective tasks and responsibilities to get that piece of content produced. So hopefully that all makes sense at a high level. What I would recommend doing is the best way to learn how to actually do this and build it is to just follow along and build it with me from scratch. So that's what we're going to be doing for the rest of this video, is not just, using this pre-built template, which you absolutely can do. You'll still need to go through and essentially configure each of these steps and authenticate it with your versions of each of these apps. And another thing I'll note is if your tech stack that you're using is not exactly this, if you're using different tools, like maybe you're using Dropbox, or maybe you're using a different alternative, like maybe you're using, WhatsApp or Telegram, whatever it may be, any of these different tools that I'm mentioning in this workflow are completely interchangeable. The best way, rather than me just giving you the fish here, is for you to actually learn how to fish. So that way you're going to actually know how to customize these automations and how to actually build them from scratch. What we're going to do here is just start with a blank slate and rebuild this whole automation one step at a time. So what we'll do is I'll just discard changes here for now. We'll click demo and let's create a new scenario here. So we'll start by building this out from scratch. And what I've also done here is within our resources, I've included a step-by-step checklist. So that's going to be right here. So if this is your first time duplicating the QuestOS dashboard, where you're going to be able to find the step-by-step instructions for this video is going to be within the journal and notes. So here you'll see the step-by-step category here. And when you click on here, that's going to pull up the step-by-step instructions. You'll just maximize it and you'll have access to everything that you need here. If you already have an instance of QuestOS and you just want the step-by-step checklist, you can click here and then just duplicate only the step-by-step instructions into your Notion account. All right, so let's get started. So first I've included the prerequisites, what you'll need before we can actually start building all this out. So you'll need a make.com account. I've included a link to sign up for all these different resources if you need them. You'll need a Notion account. You'll need your equivalent of the creator pipeline that we're going to be building off of. You'll need access to a OpenAI account for ChatGPT. You'll need a Google Drive account, and you'll need a Slack workspace. Again, like I said, if you want to swap out some of these tools for some of the tools that you're already using, by all means, you can absolutely do that. But for the sake of following along with this video, these are the tools that we're going to need. So part one, open your Notion creator pipeline, and we need to create a new native automation where the name is new YouTube video. Trigger is when property status is set to research. Our action is send a webhook request, and the content is select all existing properties. So let's go through this one step at a time. So we'll grab the name, new YouTube video. So what we're going to do here is within Notion, there is an automation ability right here. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to click on this button. We're going to name this automation new YouTube video. Our trigger is going to be whenever the status is updated to the research category. And then our action is going to be to send a webhook. And then content is going to be to select all existing properties. So we can do that. And then in order to do this, in order to actually save it, we're going to need a URL. So in order to do that, we're going to need to move on to step 2. So for now, what have we done? We can go through and check off the things that we've done as we're doing them. So we have done this. Okay, so now we need to do this right here. So we move on to part 2, which is to actually build the scenario in Make. So the first is going to be to add a webhooks node or module. So if we come back into Make, we can start with our webhooks module. So this is going to be our trigger. You can see here, trigger, we're going to need a custom webhook. So webhooks, I like to think of as ways that we can transfer and send data from one app or tool to another app or tool. So in order to do this, we need to create a webhook URL. So to choose a hook, we'll click add, we'll make a new webhook here, and then we'll click save. So now this is going to give us a webhook URL right here. And then we're going to copy this webhook address. And now we can actually paste that here. And now we can click enable. And that is essentially going to connect those two things. So now we've set up an automation where our trigger is moving this content idea from not started into research. And then that is going to trigger that webhook that will then send all of that information that we talked about right here. So all the information of the name, the content type, the creation date, all this information regarding that piece of content in our pipeline is then going to be sent over from Notion into Make, where we can then use it for the rest of our automation process. So hopefully you're with me so far. So now we can go back to our checklist. We have copied the webhook URL. We've pasted it. We've clicked enable to save it. All right, we've added the webhook module. We've created a webhook, clicked save. We've copied the webhook URL for the Notion automation. And now the last step here is to run the module and trigger the Notion automation to test it. A pro tip here, after we create different modules here in Make as a part of the automation, after each module that we create, we want to test it to make sure that it's working the way that we want it to. So we'll click save here. We'll click run once. Now this is essentially going to be listening for that trigger to see if that trigger takes place. And then let's just go ahead and actually create a new idea here just to show you how this process works of creating a new item here in our pipeline. So we'll make it a new YouTube video idea and we'll call the idea AI agents. So let's just say we have a rough idea that we want to make a video about AI agents. So we'll add this in here, close it, and then we can move this. This is our trigger, moving it from here to here. So now we're actually starting the process of producing this video about AI agents. And now the webhook has actually triggered. So now we've caught that data and then we can see, object page, and all of the information here. So if we look into properties, we can see the different properties. We can look at the name, the title. If we keep clicking in here, we can see that our content is AI agents. So now we've captured all the information we need that we can use for the rest of our automation. So with that out of the way, we can check this as done and we can move on to step 2, which is the OpenAI step for actually generating the YouTube title. So moving on, what we need to do is create a completion module. So what we'll do is just X out of this. We'll click this plus button to add another module, and then we'll click the OpenAI step and then create a completion. So what you'll need to do here is, if you're doing this for the first time, you'll need to start by creating an OpenAI connection. So we've done this step. We need to add an OpenAI connection. So in order to do that, we'll click add. So we'll need an API key here. And essentially just to take a step back here, an API key is the way for you to actually validate the fact that you're able to properly connect two different apps to communicate with one another. So the way I like to think of it is, say for example, it's your first time going to like a nightclub and the bouncer is stopping you at the door and saying, what's the secret password to get to the secret party? And you need to have like a secret passcode. So the API key is essentially like your secret passcode to get into like that underground party. And then once you've given that API key or that secret password to the bouncer like once, then the bouncer's like, yo, like you're cool, like you're all good. So every time you go to the club, the bouncer doesn't stop you at the door. He's like, all right, this guy's cool, let him through. So that's like the equivalent in my mind, at least, of like what an API key is. So in order to get the API key, what we're gonna do is open your OpenAI account and then create new secret key. You can call it whatever you want. So I'll call this maybe make demo and then create secret key. So then you can just copy this. We'll take this back into Make and then you don't need an organization ID. That's totally fine. And then I'll just put demo here, but you don't need to. And as a side note, don't ever share your API keys with anyone. This API key that I'm making is purely a demo. I'm going to delete it later, but I'll just click save for now. And then boom, that's all you need to do to create that OpenAI connection. Create new API key, we did it. We input our new API key, we clicked save. Select a method, create a chat completion. So create a chat completion, that's done. And then the model, we'll need to select a model, which at least at the time of this recording, my recommendation would be to use GPT 4.1. That's just the one that I've seen to have the best success with. These models change a lot over time, so by no means is that set in stone. That may change in the future depending on new models that come out, but at least at the time of this recording, GPT 4.1 tends to give really good results. So for the max completion tokens, we can leave at 2048 is totally fine, and we'll click save. Oh, sorry, we need to also configure the message here. Create a chat completion, we selected our model. Now we need to configure our message. So the role is going to be user and the text content. So this is essentially where we put in our prompt. So this is where we can get a little bit more creative here. For the sake of this video, I've already given you a pre-configured prompt. So you can just click here, click copy, and just paste in that prompt right here. And the key thing to note is this dynamic field right here. Everything else in this prompt is going to be somewhat fixed, but the one thing that's going to change is this little piece right here. So what we're taking is the name of the title of that card from Notion. which is, the topic idea that we have as our input. And then our output is going to be a single optimized YouTube title based on the prompt here. So you can take this prompt and customize it for your specific needs. For example, you can make it suit the tone of, your brand voice, the type of content that you make, the audience that you're trying to target, so on and so forth. But the way we do this here, just to show you how these dynamic fields work, the input right here on the right, we can see all the data that we got from the trigger step, the data that we pulled from that webhook. In here, for example, we have our webhook that we caught. Let's look into our properties. So if we open up properties and we open up the name and the title, and in plain text here, we have AI agents. So that's what we want. That's what we want to give as our input to this prompt, that it's going to take that topic of AI agents and then turn it into a YouTube optimized title. So we'll just click this, boom, and then that's going to insert that dynamically into that prompt. So even the next time we may run this prompt for a different YouTube title, it's just going to swap out the topic in a dynamic way. So it's going to work no matter what the trigger is. So hopefully that all makes sense. So now that we have done that, we can check these as complete. We'll click save. And another pro tip here is we want to always click save. We want to constantly be saving this as we go. So now that we have this saved, we can go ahead and test this again. But before we do, there's actually one more step here that I want to make sure we do. So as a pro tip, we want to add a filter for before this step. So since in our content pipeline, there may be other types of content that we're creating. Maybe we're creating Instagram Reels. Maybe we're creating tweets, other types of content that may not be relevant to YouTube and creating YouTube titles. So we want this automation to only fire when it's actually a YouTube video. And as you see here, we chose YouTube here, and in here, the content type is marked as YouTube. So we only want this automation to fire when it's actually a YouTube video. So in order to do that, what we do is just click on this little button right here and click Setup Filter. So we can call this maybe YT filter. And then the condition is going to be when our properties, our content type, and then the name where it says YouTube. That's what we want to basically filter by. So we're name, and then I'd like to put contains YouTube. Okay. So now this is a filter. So only content that has been marked as YouTube is going to trigger this scenario. So now that we've done that, we can now actually test what we have so far. So we'll click run once. All right. So we can move this back and then move it back into research. Now let's see what happens. Okay, great. So now it caught the webhook and it also fired this action. So by clicking on these numbers up here, you can see the result of what actually happened at each of these steps in the scenario. So if we click here, we can see the result. So it took the raw idea or the topic of AI agents, and the result of that ChatGPT step was AI agents explained how they're transforming businesses. So that's great. We took that raw idea of AI agents and then we've transformed it into a YouTube optimized title. So that's essentially working exactly as we want it to. So that looks all good. So now step 3 is basically taking that title and then sending it back into Notion and actually updating that card in our creator pipeline with our new YouTube title. So in order to do that, we're going to add a Notion step for update a database item. So we can add another module here. We can search for Notion, and then we can say update a database item. Okay, great. And then if you don't already have a connection here, again, you'll just need to click add, click a connection type. We're going to want Notion public. You can name this whatever you want. We could say demo for the sake of this example, click save, and then it'll prompt you to actually log into your Notion account and authorize it. So we can see, so let's go into our pages. Okay, so we'll click allow access. Okay, so once you set up your connection, now we've done this. We've added a new connection. Connection type is Notion public. So we need to enter a database ID, which is select from the list, and then select our database ID. So we enter a database ID, select from list, database ID. Okay, so for the database that we're actually working with here, if you click on the 3 dots here, you can see that the content database is what we're working with. So what we can do is just search for content, click OK, and then that should pull in the database ID for our content database. And you could double check that just by seeing all the different subtasks here. So AI agents, Zapier tutorial, make.com, N8N, so on and so forth. You can see that that's matching up with all the items that we have here. So that looks like that's mapped properly. So once we have done that, and now we need the database item ID. Okay, so database item ID, and then that one we're gonna map from the page ID from the webhook step. Essentially what we'll do is come into our webhook step, data, the object is page, and then the page ID should be this one right here. So we can just click on this right here, data ID. So then that's basically going to tell it right now which database that we're looking to update and which specific item within that database are we looking to update. Okay, so check, check. And then now the last step here is mapping the name. So what do we actually want to update about that page? So we want to update the name, and we'll update it with what we want to update it to. Essentially what we want to do is take the name of that page and update it to what we did in the previous step. So we'll take this open AI step here, and then we'll take the result and then plug it in right here. So we'll click save, and then that should basically take care of that step. And as always, what we're going to do is first start by moving this back here. Let's save this. Let's try again. Okay, here we go. So now we can move this. All right, boom, boom, and boom. Looks like all 3 steps ran. Now let's go back and boom. It looks like it just automatically updated our title. AI agents explained how they're changing business forever. How cool. So steps 1, 2, and 3 look like they're all working perfectly as expected. So we can move on. So step number 4 is to search Google Drive. So within Google Drive, this is how I like to set it up. I have a YouTube folder, and then within my YouTube folder, I have subfolders for each specific YouTube video that I'm working on. And I have a specific naming convention for how I name all those different folders and even the subfolders within those. So for example, for each folder, I'm going to give it a number based on the number video that it is in the sequence. I'm going to give it a really short name that's between 1 and 3 words that's descriptive to that video, but also really short. And then within each video, I'm going to create subfolders, one for footage, one for final exports, and then one for thumbnails, all labeled, 1, 2, and 3. So that's essentially the kind of folder naming structure that we need to execute here. So in order to figure out what the next number folder needs to be within my Google Drive, I need this automation to know what the last folder was. So if it knows that the last folder was number 12, so it knows that the next folder number is going to be 13. So in order to do that, we're going to add a search step. So it can actually search my Google Drive folder and see what the last added folder was. So that's essentially what we're going to be doing in this next step here. So we're going to add a Google Drive search for files folders step here. All right, so within our scenario, we're going to click the plus button. We're going to type in Drive and then search for files/folders. And if you don't already have a Google Drive account, again, I've included a link in the resources section where you can create your own Google Workspace account. Okay, so back to our instructions. So we add the step. Now we add a new Google Drive connection, and we sign in with our Google account. So we'll click add. You'll just sign in with Google. I'm not going to do it for the sake of this example, but it's pretty straightforward. You'll just sign in with your Google account, and then that's going to create that connection right there. So then once you've done that, the select method is going to be select from list. So we'll select from list, choose drive is going to be my drive, and then you'll choose a specific folder. So in this case, let's make sure. All right, so select from list, my drive, choose folder, and then I'll select the YouTube folder. So if you don't already have a YouTube folder within your drive, you can go ahead and create one, and then you could select that YouTube folder. And then under retrieve, we're going to say folders. So we're going to say folders, and then limit is going to be 1. So anything that there's not like a specific value for, you can just leave as is with the default value. So for this, we're going to say limit is 1, and then we'll click save. Okay. So the goal here is to find the last used number so the next video can increment by 1. So as I mentioned, if the last video number was 12, then we know that, so then we can make the next folder number 13, for example. Okay, so as usual, let's go ahead and test this. So we'll click on run once. So now it's going to be listening, waiting for data. Let's run our trigger, moving this to research. And then boom, let's see if this Google Drive step was able to pull the folder that we wanted to. So we see right here, the name of the folder, number 12, AI skills. That is the most recent folder that we've added in here, which is perfect. So now that we have that, that's working as we want it to. Our next step here is another open AI step, which is to generate the folder name for the next folder in the sequence. So we're going to add another open AI step to create a completion. So we'll X this out, click here, OpenAI, create a completion. So now we already have our OpenAI connection. We'll just make sure it's the demo one. Select method is going to be to create a chat completion. Our model as before is going to be the GPT 4.1, and then we'll need to configure the message. So we'll add message, same as before, role is going to be user. So we can just start checking these off as we go. All right, so configure message, role user, text content, which is the prompt, is going to be right here. So you can just copy this, paste this into the prompt. So just to give you an idea here, basically what it's saying here in the prompt is you're a master archivist skilled in distilling complex video titles into ultra concise descriptors. Your task is to take a full YouTube video title and convert it into a short, clear folder name, no more than 3 words, fewer if possible, that captures the core topic or theme of the video. In addition, I will provide the name of the previous folder in the sequence. You must extract the number from the previous folder name, increment it by 1, and prepend it to your new folder name in the same format, e.g., we give it an example. Avoid unnecessary words or flair. This is for practical folder organization in Google Drive. Respond with only the final folder name formatted as next number dot and then a 1 through 3 word descriptor. So here is the YouTube video title. So again, this is where we need to add in the dynamic field mapping here. So just to show you how that works, what we're going to do is take in the YouTube video title from our step here. That's going to be this right here. And then the previous folder name is going to be this one right here. So again, we'll map this. The previous folder name is going to be this right there. So it may get a little wonky sometimes, like you saw there. So you just want to make sure that you remap this based on the way all the data is being pulled into your scenario. And then that should work. So here's the YouTube video title and then the previous folder name. Yeah, so that should work. Let's click save. Let's see what we got. Yep, as usual, let's go ahead and okay, we'll try with our data. Okay, now let's see what we got. So boom, our output is going to be 13 AI agents. And that's perfect because the next number in the sequence is 13 and the topic of this video is AI agents. So that is working exactly as we want it to. And then the next step here is to create our main folder in Google Drive. So now that we have the folder name, let's go ahead and actually create that folder in Google Drive. To do this, we're gonna click Add New Module, Google Drive, and then create a folder. So again, we should have our Google Drive connection. We can select the folder. So in this case, it's gonna be the YouTube folder. So we're gonna add Google Drive, create folder, new drive location is my drive. The new folder location is going to be the YouTube folder. And then the new folder name is going to be our previous output. So again, we'll go ahead and grab our previous output, which is going to be this right here, the 13 AI agents. That's the name of our new folder. So we can map that dynamically. We'll click save. And then again, as usual, we'll click save and then run our test. Okay, looks like all the steps ran accordingly. Now let's check our folder. Let's refresh this. Boom, there it is. 13 AI agents. It's working perfectly, exactly the way that we want it to. So just for sake of continuing to test this, I'm just going to move this to trash just because we're going to keep testing this for future steps. Okay, so this is all working. Now for steps 7 through 9, we're basically going to create the subfolders for footage, final exports, and thumbnails, all within that parent folder. So in order to do that, we're going to keep building additional steps. So we need to essentially create additional Google Drive steps here. We're going to say create a folder. We're going to use the same Google Drive account. We're going to say folder location is going to be YouTube, new folder name. Okay, so actually what we want to do is instead of just saying YouTube, we actually want to map the new folder location into the specific parent folder that we just created. So the way that we can do that is by toggling this little map icon here. So rather than just saying a specific fixed folder, we can make this a dynamic field. This folder here, this was the previous step of actually creating that folder. So we just need to grab this folder ID for this 13 AI agents folder. So we just need to paste that in there. So folder ID, and then the new folder name is going to be one footage. So that's it. We'll click save, and then we could just kind of speed through these next ones. Google Drive, create folder. This is going to be the same. New folder location, we'll map it for the 13 AI agents, folder ID. New folder name for this one is going to be final exports. We'll click save one more time, Google Drive, create a folder. We'll click map, and then we will map it to this same folder for 13 AI agents. Make sure you're mapping it to the parent folder. And then the new folder name for this one is going to be 3 thumbnails. Okay, and then now we can click save. And now let's try and run this as a test again. So let's move this back here. We'll click run once, and let's just double check. Okay, 13 is not there anymore. So let's move this here. Let's go back into our automation. Okay, now it's firing. You can see it working in progress. It looks like all the steps fired properly. So let's check our Google Drive folder. All right, we have our 13 AI agents again, and we have all of our subfolders within that. Perfect. So this is all working exactly as we want it to so far. So we can mark all of these as done. And then now the last step here, we're almost done, is just sending the notification message in Slack within our media channel to notify the rest of our media team to actually start working on that video. So in order to do this, we're going to add a Slack step and then create message. So last step here, we can look up Slack, create message. You'll need to make a Slack connection. So again, connection type is going to be Slack user. I won't go through that process because it's pretty straightforward. But once you've done that, we make a new Slack connection. You'll add the channel ID or name. So that's going to be select from the list. So from here, you can select whichever one you want. In this case, we're going to select media because this is pertaining to our media team. And then we'll configure the actual text here. So this is the way I have it. But again, you can configure this however you want. Basically what we're saying here, let's just paste this over into our text. So we're just going to send a notification saying new YouTube video in progress. And then we're going to map a few things here. So we're going to map the title of the YouTube video. We're going to map the Google Drive link. Again, just so since we have centralized access amongst multiple team members, if other members of the team, for example, want to access the raw footage or maybe access the folder to upload the thumbnails, whatever that might be, it just makes it easy to have centralized access to the Google Drive link. And then we can access the link to the Notion, the link to the actual Notion page for that piece of content, and then the actual status. So again, some of these things might be a little bit wonky just based on how they're being mapped into your specific scenario. So in this case, we can just remap them all just to show you how this all works. So the title of the video is going to come from our step number 2. So that's going to be our step right here. So right here, we're going to say the result is the title. So our AI agents YouTube title here. The drive link will essentially go back to our original parent folder step. So this is going to be the 13 AI agents parent folder. We'll need the web view link. So that's going to be that right there. So now we've mapped that. The next one is going to be the actual Notion link. So we can grab that from the original webhook. Okay, right here. So that's going to be the URL for the actual Notion item, and then the status. So this we can also grab under properties. We should be able to see status, and the status is under research. Okay, so now we've mapped all of those specific items here. And another thing to notice here is anything that I've put asterisks around, this is all being in Markdown. So anything that has these little asterisks around it is just going to be bolded as far as Slack is concerned. So if we just click save here and then save here, we'll go ahead and test this whole thing one last time. And before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and just delete this again, just so we're not duplicating. Okay, one last step here. Okay, so we're testing. Okay, now the automation is running. All right, let's check everything. Okay, and for some reason, it's thinking that it's 2024, even though it's not. So obviously this isn't exactly 100% perfect here and could use a little work, but this is all for sake of example. Let's go back into our AI business. So again, yeah, it's not 100% perfect every single time. And this is where you can come in and kind of refine and massage some of the prompts here to make sure that it works exactly the way that you want it to. But let's see. We have our subfolders here working exactly the way that we want it to. And then if we open up Slack right there, we have, let's just say not now for these. We have our new YouTube video in progress. So we have our title here, we have our Google Drive link, we have our Notion link, and we have the status of that piece of content. So now our thumbnail designer, our video editor can come in here, maybe react to that post to acknowledge the fact that they've seen it and they're actually starting to work on it and start moving that piece of content along through the content production pipeline and the whole content production process. So as I previously mentioned, the best way to learn this stuff is really just to get your hands dirty with it and actually build workflows and automations like this step by step. So if you haven't done so already, be sure to click the link in the description to join the AI Quest community so you can grab all of the resources that I outlined and prepared for you to make your process of learning AI automation as easy as possible. If you found this video to be helpful in any way, shape, or form, I would really appreciate it if you did me a favor and like this video and subscribe to the channel for more AI content like this. So with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.